Hi, I'm Angela, and today I'm with Nevsah. Nevsah is a breath expert and has been forming breath miracles globally for over 20 years and has impacted over 10,000 individuals. So Nevsah, how did your journey into breath begin?
Yeah, so my journey began 20 years ago when I was doing yoga and meditation, and I was already practicing breathing techniques. So I started getting aware that how I breathe affects how I feel, how I breathe affects my thinking habits, how I think, and also it affects my behavior. So I literally realized that if I wanted to change my life, if I wanted to change who I am, if I wanted to feel better, if I wanted to use my full potential in life, I had to work on my breathing habits, because breathing is habitual and many people misunderstand that. It's like many people think breathing can only affect us when we use breathing techniques, but because it's habitual, because it's happening naturally, we need to work on our breathing habits. So we need to work on our habits, on changing our habits if we want to change who we are, if we want to change our thinking habits, and if we want to change how we live our lives.
But how did you learn about breathing? How did you even realize that breathing or breath played such a huge impact in your life? How did you find it?
So it just didn't happen overnight.
Okay.
It took me a process, because the first time I realized breathing affects my life big time was when I was doing breathing techniques. Because when you use a breathing technique, you can calm yourself down, you can just hyper up, you can just have lots of energy, you can use breathing techniques to concentrate, you can use breathing techniques for lots of different reasons. So I was like, my breathing affects my psychology, and I wanted to know more about it. So I trained myself on breath work. I went to breath work seminars, breath work workshops, and I graduated from the Transformational Breathing School. I became a facilitator, training. Then before that, I got into holotropic breathing. So I studied holotropic breathing, and I went to holotropic breathing workshops. And then the more I went deep into breathing, so I tried rebirthing, and I learned about rebirthing and biodynamic breathing. So there were lots of breathing techniques, breathing systems I tried. Then the more I learned about it, the more I learned about how my breathing affects my psychology. I wanted to go deeper into the background, into the scientific process around it. Then I trained myself on respiratory science and behavioral science, and I started working with a university in Wyoming, and I started working in Istanbul. I started working with psychiatrists and psychologists and behavioral scientists, and then we created a system called breath coaching. It's very much influenced by transformational breathing, breath work, holotropic breathing, and rebirthing, and yet our training is a little different, because we don't only work on the scientific level, but we work a lot on the consciousness and a lot on the spiritual level. So there's a whole philosophy on the background working around the breathing habits.
So how long did it take you to redefine these workshops that you've been delivering globally? Because you're like a breath global phenomenon, and you've impacted over tens and thousands of people, starting from Turkey to New York to London. So how?
Yeah, it took me, I think, more than 10 years.
Okay.
I mean, the thing is, I was always aware about the power of surrendering, because I grew up in a family with my grandmother, knowing that surrendering and being able to say yes to life was the most important thing. And even though I knew it, I couldn't take it to a deeper level, because I had a breathing habit and I would keep my breathing shallow. I think I was a person who was always deeply connected with who she was and what was going on around her. So when you look at my life, nothing was really wrong. So I was a lucky person, because I was always aware. So it didn't take me a long time to get it, because it was already there. But then to combine what I did spiritually, or combine what I saw spiritually, or what I was aware of I was deeply connected with the truth, but to combine that truth and to bring it to people, I needed some more scientific information. So I knew surrendering was the most important thing, and I grew into that. And I just couldn't tell my friends, I just couldn't tell my family or people around me the importance of surrendering, because people are taught to be succeeders in westernized countries. So it's like everybody would ask me, like, how do you do it? You know, you're always successful, you always do that. It's like all throughout my life, I have always been a succeeder, but I couldn't tell people that I was doing nothing about it. It's like I was not the one succeeding. I was just a person just being able to surrender so that everything would work out miraculously, and I just couldn't tell it to people. Then over the years I realized that the reason I couldn't tell it to people was because I was breathing shallow. I couldn't take my knowledge and my awareness to a deeper level so that I could tell it to people. But when I started working on my breathing habits, everything I was aware of, everything I already had, like all my gifts were just out there, and I'm a natural born spiritual leader. So it's like my whole thing, my whole life was about spiritually leading people. I would do that when I was 5, I was doing that when I was 10. So when I look back to my childhood and my teenage years, when I was in my 20s, when I first started breath work, when I worked with people, I'm a person who's always triggering stuff you don't want to see about yourself. So I'm always triggering stuff it's like when I'm with people, I'm always triggering stuff they couldn't accept about themselves and about the world, and I can't help it because I'm a person who's aware that we all need that awakening about being able to say yes and being able to accept all there is. So if there's something you don't accept in life, I will be the one who's going to trigger that. And right now I'm doing the same thing, but I'm doing it on purpose. So what happened in my life is, I believe we are all born with a mission, and we don't choose our mission chooses me. So the mission that chose me was to awaken people. I was already doing that. So unconsciously or consciously, since my childhood, I was like triggering all kinds of stuff in people and getting them aware to a higher consciousness, and it was happening everywhere. The first time I started breath work, it happened in transformational breathing. Like for transformational breathing, I was a transformative tool. I was the one who was transforming the whole transformational, breath facilitators in Turkey. Like in my school, it still is that way. It's like in all groups I go into or interfere, it's like I'm always the one who's making people get aware, and sometimes people don't like it. It's like if they don't come to my seminar and pay for it, asking for it, they don't like it, but I just can't help it. It's like if you're around me, you're gonna transform, because I'm gonna light up everything you've been running away from, and you're gonna just come to face with yourself, just because I'm there, and face to face with whatever you haven't been accepting and honoring in your humanity. You're gonna see that in me, and it's like, or in others, and you're gonna get face to face. So I'm like a big transformative tool, natural born transformation energy there, and it's like I learned over the years to use it in my business and just stay cool in my personal life. Like everybody in my family, my friends, they all are aware of that.